Hello there, I am Scorched Scales, and over the last week I have been reading Escaping Peril, the book starring my personal favourite Wings of Fire character. So the question is, how much did I like it? Well, currently, these are the rankings. And also, yes, I changed the layout because I thought the previous one looked very, very confusing. So, after reading it, I would personally rank it around here, right below Moon Rising. I do have some very specific reasons as to why this book is here and why it isn't any higher. However, over time, this book could very easily overtake Moon Rising, and hell, maybe even bloody The Brightest Night. Yes. That's what my favourite book is called in the series. So yes, as for Escaping Peril, if you couldn't tell, I really enjoyed it. Although, for me personally, it didn't reach my personal peaks of Moon Rising and The Brightest Night. First, I'm going to talk about the negatives, the things that I didn't like about this book, because I have very few of them, and I mainly just want to get this part over and done with, so I can gush about how much I like the rest of it. So, my main critique with this book is, as you would probably expect by now if you watched my other videos, it's the pacing and the overall length. Because for me personally, it doesn't really feel like this book really starts until like halfway through it. The moment reading this book where I went, ooh, now this is really starting, was when Peril met Sora, I believe Carnelian's Skywing form was called. That's the scene that really made me go, oh, okay, now things are really starting to get moving. Now we're getting into the actual plot. And that's like halfway through the book. I understand why it's placed here, because everything before that scene is necessary. Like, you need everything before that. You can't cut any of that. It's just that by the time for me that the book feels like the story is really starting to pick up the pace is like when we are halfway done. It's like, really, we've spent half of a book just wandering to get to possibility instead of Scarlet reclaiming her kingdom. But since every scene before this is like 100% necessary towards Peril and her character, I personally think the book would have benefited from being a bit longer. Particularly when Scarlet takes over the Skywing Kingdom and when Peril is still working for her. In reality, I am good with it as it is, but if we had more time there, I really feel like that would have offset my personal gripes about, oh, we're really starting like halfway through. And my second critique with this book is, I don't even really know if it's a critique or something that I didn't pick up on. It's at the end, where it's revealed that Ruby is really Tourmaline, just transformed. But in the prologue for this book, we see Ruby and Tourmaline interact with each other. So therefore, does that mean all of those memories were fake, since Tourmaline and Ruby are the same person? Like, is Chameleon able to write brand new memories on the scroll? Or when Ruby is talking to Tourmaline, is she really talking to somebody else, but the scroll changes her memories to make it seem like she was talking to her sister? I don't know, I would have preferred if that was clarified a bit more. Now on to the positives, on to what I liked about this book, which was, basically everything. Personally, I believe that this is probably the best written Wings of Fire book so far. Now, you might be thinking, but wouldn't this make it your favorite? No, because there's a very big difference between something being your favorite and something being, in your opinion, the best. Like, for example, my favorite film of all time isn't the same as what I believe is the best film of all time. While yes, a lot of the time, and for a lot of people, there is a big overlap between the two. But right here, for Wings of Fire, those two things do differ for me. The reason why Escaping Peril isn't my favorite is because it really didn't have the emotional impact that The Brightest Night had on me, nor did it have me gripped from page to page like Moon Rising did. While yes, a lot of the time, I did find myself like really invested in the book, in both the characters and the story, but it didn't grip me as much as the other two books did. However, the reason why I personally believe that this is the best written one is due to every scene in this being important. Every part of this book serves a purpose. Like, even the prologue is extremely important towards building the story. I don't think there's really been a prologue important to the story as much as this one before. The only other one that could come to mind to me is the prologue for Winter Turning, where we establish the life of Winter and his connection to Hailstorm. But even then, you could remove that, and you would still understand why Winter is doing things he does. You just wouldn't have as deep of a understanding as you do with the prologue. But the prologue for Escaping Peril is there to establish Ruby's character and to showcase her first impressions of Peril, which is extremely important towards how Ruby acts as a character, and especially how she indirectly affects the story with how Ruby's actions affects Peril, and causing her to go out on the journey to try and kill Scarlet. Actually, thinking about it now, I do have one more critique, which is specifically with the ending, with the death of Queen Scarlet. Like, for me personally, her death felt a little anticlimactic. Like, really? Tourmaline just snaps her neck? Really? That's it? That's how you kill off, quite possibly, the best villain in the series? Like, I personally would have preferred if her death was a bit more theatrical. With Peril, like, yeah, you know, the main character of the book, also being involved with her defeat. Which, while yes, Ruby tells her exactly not to get involved, because Ruby needs to beat Scarlet so she can officially become queen. It's just that I personally would have preferred Peril being involved at some point. Like, spitballing ideas here. Scarlet realizes that she's about to lose, and in a sudden burst of rage, she tries to attack a cliff, and Peril, let's say, bloody punches her and burns the other half of her face. And then Ruby comes in, still beats her, whacks her down, and then snaps her neck. I would have liked it if, in some way, Peril did help in, like, the final blow, while still giving Ruby the ability to kill Scarlet. Oh, bloody hell! Oh, bloody hell! I just drank some water, and it went down the wrong hole. Oh, that's what she said! Okay, now I really think I should move on to the characters, because I would prefer to finish recording the audio before I drop dead. Alright, so the first character here that I should really talk about is Peril. Like, yeah, Peril's great. I love her character, and she is still very easily my favourite Wings of Fire character. Oh, and it just so happens that I did JMA's Wings of Fire test where it reveals what character you're the most like. And I got Peril. Yeah. I don't know if I should be happy or concerned. And the thing is, it was very accurate multiple times throughout this book. I found myself going, oh, that sounds a lot like me. Like, even down to sudden thoughts that she has. There were two in particular that really stood out to me. Is that, it was during part 1, I think, when Peril is reflecting on her past self. And she says something along the lines of, "Ha! Stupid past me, thank God they're dead." And, I've said stuff like that, almost one for one. But, lastly, it's near the end of the book, I think. After Scarlet is beaten, I'm pretty sure Peril says something along the lines of, "I don't want to be cured, I just want to be accepted and understood." Which, that hits very close to home for me. Like, yeah, I'm fairly certain I've said those exact things in my head before. While the struggles that Peril faces, I can't relate to. But Peril's mindset, the way she talks to herself, that I can personally relate to. Oh yeah, and also I like Peril because she's funny. Now, moving on to the next character, Turtle. Now, I have talked about him previously. Like, I talked about him in Moon Rising, about how he didn't really fit the stereotype of what I thought he would be. I was expecting Turtle to be a very shy, quiet, reserved character. And in Moon Rising, he came across a lot more confident to me. However, in this book, he's exactly what I thought he was. Like, yeah, he's the shy guy. It's said somewhere that Turtle just wants to go under a mountain and hide. Like, yeah, me too, Turtle. Me too. And the only other thing I really have to say about Turtle, he very obviously has a thing for liking Kinkajou. It's just that Peril doesn't really pick up on it. Because outside of Clay, she seems rather oblivious to more subtle feelings. Oh my god. She's literally me! And I'm very intrigued to see what Turtle is like as a protagonist. Like, a lot of the previous characters, they are very active. They want to go forward. They want to continue. But what is it like when you're following a character who doesn't want to go anywhere? I'm very intrigued to see what he is like in Talons of Power. And as for Scarlet, like, yeah, she's great. And onto new characters. I'm really gonna start off with talking about Carnelian, Peril's father. Carnelian as a character, he doesn't really have that much depth to him. But the only real thing I have to say about Carnelian as a character is, at the end, it's how he's dealt with. Because at the end of the book, they take away Darkstalker's scroll from him. And, they just leave him. They just leave him with all of his OCs. I was like, I have zero sympathy for this character. Personally, I would have liked if they, took Carnelian, to the rainforest, and let's just say, accidentally, let every single dragon in the kingdom beat the shit out of him. But I don't know, that's just what I would have done. Since Chameleon is still on the loose, I'm very intrigued to see if he comes back up again. Since he still has the form of a Nightwing, is he going to try and work for Darkstalker? Or is he completely done in the story? Like, do we ever see Chameleon again? Because I kinda hope we do see him again. Just so he can have the shit beaten out of him. And, I just can't get over that, like, when he's in Nightwing form, I'm pretty sure he says that he made himself invincible. Like, can he just do that? Can he just add any adjective to what he is? Like, I can just see Chameleon being like a very childish OC creator, where he's just trying to make him seem like the toughest, bossest guy around. I can just see him being like, yes, here's my OC, his name is Death Gripper, he has big muscles, he's stronger than everybody, he's invincible, he's fireproof, he's a fire scale, and a animus, and he's best friends with Qibli, and he also has a really big dick. And another character I have something to say about. They have a very small role, but it's Cliff, Ruby's son. I think he's hilarious. Like, the part where all the dragonettes are just chewing into Scarlet. They're just constantly roasting her. They're finishing what Glory started. And some of the stuff they said had me dying with laughter. And there is a specific line in this that Cliff says, which I'm pretty sure is my favorite quote in anything ever. He says, "I want to see Mummy kill Grandma!" Like, that quote coming from a child is quite possibly one of the funniest things I've ever heard in any type of media. It's just a tiny child wishing for death. A tiny child wishing for... Cliff is only 6 months old, and he's already starting to crave for blood. Now, I've already had a fair say on Ruby as a character, so I'll just say something that I found very interesting, which is that Chameleon says that Ruby isn't supposed to be able to fight Scarlet, and Peril basically asks, how can she do this? And Chameleon goes, I don't know. Maybe she spent so much time as Ruby that now Ruby has become a real person. Like, damn! That's really interesting. No, so I have a general question here. When Ruby walks into Scarlet's throne room, when Peril kills all the eggs, I presume that is the first time Scarlet is seeing Ruby as Ruby, and not as Tourmaline. Like, why does nobody around her question who this new dragon is? Like, why doesn't Carnelian go, who's this? Who is this? Who is this tomato ketchup wannabe? And why are you calling her daughter? I don't know, I'm very intrigued to see if Ruby appears in the other books. I'm very intrigued to see how they could possibly expand upon that. But I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see her again, considering the next book is about a Seawing. And now, departing from the characters, I really wanted to talk about the ending. Specifically, when they're already at the spot of Darkstalker. We see from the POV of Peril, we see Moonwatcher talking to Darkstalker. We see her yelling words out loud, which removed from context, yes, it makes her look insane. But within the story, within what we've already experienced, we know exactly what's going on. Like, I found that very interesting to see what Moon looks like talking to Darkstalker when we aren't inside of her head. And when they're all arguing about the scroll and what they should do with it, I loved how that showed that the main characters that we follow, they aren't perfect. They can be corrupted. They have their own personal biases and what they want to use the scroll for. Like, we see them all argue and bicker about what they should do with Darkstalker's scroll and the unlimited power that it holds. I think that's really good. And then Peril takes it and destroys it? Like, damn. That's probably the best thing she could have done. Even though it awakes a giant, evil, murderous dragon. Like, yeah, that's a small side effect. And at the end, Darkstalker directly credits Peril with setting him free. Like, yeah, once again, the next book, it follows Turtle. But I'm very intrigued to see if that affects Peril as a character. And, I love how, like, the first impression Peril has of Winter is just Winter just running into him. Winter just, like, being a bloody fighter pilot and just fucking bombing into her. And she nearly burns him alive. She nearly kills him. They almost had roasted Icewing for dinner. And then, alongside that, Darkstalker's mother, I've forgotten her name, she just disappears. When Winter is on the ground burning alive, she just dips. She just goes. So yes, that was Escaping Peril. I really liked it. Like, yeah, it does feel a bit disconnected from the arc, even more than the others. But on its own, it's still a really good story, and in my opinion, it's the best written Wings of Fire book so far. Although it didn't really grab me as much as the other books, and I didn't have a big emotional reaction like what I did with the other books in question, hence why it isn't higher on the list. But in the future, on rereads, I could very easily see this book climbing even higher in the rankings. I could very easily see this one becoming my favourite over time. And for the art I was drawing in this video, I wasn't happy with how it was turning out when I was doing the line art like normal. I thought this looked like crap when I was doing the line art. But now looking at the final result, I really like how it came out. This was my first time drawing Peril, but it wasn't my first time drawing a Skywing. I've drawn Ruby before, which is why I used her as reference while doing Peril, so I can keep them somewhat consistent when I'm drawing the same species. And I had a lot of trouble with the colours here in particular, because with most of my drawings, the way I start doing the colour is that I take these, I don't know if they're official, but I think they are, since they are using the Joyang outline. I eyedrop the colours from that, and then fill out the dragon, and then I go in, I recolour, and add my own personal colours. And I had a hard time finding the right shade of orange for her scales. And even looking at the final result, I still think the colour along the back, I still think that should be like a darker red. But hey, that's something I can improve on in the future. So yeah, now that's really all I have to say. So, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you, yes you watching this video. I hope to see you another day.